he's a vampire nonetheless. Mr. Doug Jones.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi. Well, so thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is a real special treat for us. When we set this up, we didn't know that we were going to have a release date. So we can now tell you October 18th on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon. So that's exciting. I know, right? And our version of Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, is not to be confused with the Robert Eggers Nosferatu, starring Bill Skarsgård, who is younger and hotter and more famous than me. But that's coming Christmas in theaters, and we can have both. We can be excited for both, can't we? Yeah. One little tidbit, I don't want to talk too much, but one little tidbit about this is that our movie is scene for scene the same as the original 1922 silent film, but with new actors, dialogue, and sound, and a musical score. I know, right? Every frame of this movie has a green screen element to it. It might be a lot of green screen, it might be a little bit of green screen, but every frame has something from the original movie digitally added into our background. So I know, right? So I got to play in the same environment that Max Schreck did, which is right? That was a bucket list thing for me. So anyway, so thank you so much. I would say, and stick around after. We're going to have a little Q&A on the stage afterward, okay? And other stuff, other surprise things. So please stick around, and I would say roll it.
Now, without further ado, the man of the hour, would ladies and gentlemen please welcome Mr. Doug Jones to the stage.
Let's keep it going for Doug, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. What did everybody think of Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror? So again, as Derek said, we are Screens from the Basement. I am one of the co-hosts on the Screens from the Basement podcast. I am Casey Calderman.
And I'm Sam Lenz.
And tonight, let's get screaming as we're talking Nosferatu with the one and only Doug Jones. Doug, thank you so much for being here. First of all, this is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so thank you.
Well, the honor is mine. Thank you for having me, and thank all of you for staying. I am almost worried that we're going to have half a theater, so thank you for that. And well, before we get, can I brag on my castmates to start off with? You might have recognized some of the faces in this movie that weren't really advertised, but my co-stars, Emery's Cooper played the young man who was, what was his name in this movie? Good gosh. Thomas. He played Thomas. He's actually British in real life. His wife, Ellen, was played by my dear co-star from Falling Skies, Sarah Carter. In fact, I met Sarah while filming Falling Skies. She was on 5 seasons of it. I was on the last 3 seasons of that show as an alien. And I was when this movie came up, they started the Kickstarter campaign for it 10 years ago. This was a very low-budget film, very low, and just a labor of love for all of us. None of us got rich off this. And I asked Sarah, I said, Sarah, there's this lead lady role from the classic movie Nosferatu that I think you'd be perfect for, and it would be something you've never done before. It would be a new light to see you in, and would you? She was like, yes. Where do I sign up? So that's how easy that was. Thank heaven for her, because was she not a screen presence? Oh, I know. Yeah, beautiful. The people she stayed with while her husband was away collecting me was Jack Turner was the captain, Wolfram. You might know him from a lot of Hallmark movies now. He's been a prince, and he's been like a fiance and a boyfriend in many Hallmark movies. Quite a screen romantic. And his sister was played by Jolie Fisher, sister of Carrie Fisher. Yeah. And Jolie Fisher was also a series regular on the Ellen DeGeneres sitcom long before she was a talk show host. It was called Ellen, I think, right? Is that right? And then, of course, we had a couple of great cameos in this. The gentleman who played Knock, the crazy real estate guy who went nuts, and he was my little protege. He was played by a gentleman named Edgar Allan Poe in real life. I know. And also, there was a very quick cameo of a doctor with dark hair played by the wonderful Voltaire. If anyone, yes. He's a Gothic music king and a good friend of mine. And when he heard that this movie was being made, he begged to have a cameo in it. So they gave him a role. I was so happy for that. And also, the blind fellow who was kind of crazily ranting in the streets was played by Thomas Nicholas from the American Pie movies. I know. So anyway, I wanted to brag on everybody, and everyone did such a great job.
Yeah, Thomas Nicholas was actually here about a year ago doing a Q&A just like this afterwards, so it's kind of a weird full circle moment here at the State Theatre in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I guess first question for you, Doug. How did this project come about? How was it approached to you? I know you worked with the director previously on the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari together. How did this movie come about?
Well, because of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which was done in the same way, old movie, new movie, put together as a remix, years went past, and I got a random phone call from David Lee Fisher one day. I was driving, doing this. It was against the law. And he said, Doug, hey, I haven't talked, how you been? Haven't talked to you in a long time. Got this crazy idea. If you don't want to do it, I won't do it, but I have this, would you ever want to play Nosferatu? Okay, what he didn't know, and what I screamed about on the phone was like, oh my God, was that this has been my bucket list role since decades ago. It's like if I hadn't played vampires way back in the day, and I was like, oh well, I really want to play a vampire, but you know, I'm not really handsome and sexy enough to be Dracula, right? And I'm not young and sparkly enough to be in that other franchise. So I thought, oh, a craggly old gross guy. Yes, that I can play. That I know. So I've always wanted to play Nosferatu, and I didn't realize we could do this much of a smacking remake of it that would be, you know, scene for scene the same as the original silent film, which it was such a great to do an homage to that original film and to honor Max Schreck's original performance. I was just so tickled pink to do that. So it was an immediate yes, and we went into it. Again, that was 10 years ago was the Kickstarter campaign. We started filming in 2015, so 9 years ago. Did some pickup reshoots in 2017, which is still a lot of years ago. And in the meantime, the post-production took forever because every frame of the movie, again, had to have digital effects brought in. And getting that done on a budget was really hard. And so finally, in the meantime, this other Nosferatu, starts getting announced by Robert Eggers. Oh, God, right? So we could have been out 9 years ago. Come on, right? So anyway, so we're finally going to get out 2 months before them. Yes. But they're going to be two very different movies. As you can see, ours is an artistic bent that the other one won't be. And Robert Eggers brings his own flavor to movies, of course. So it's going to be great.
So with this movie using heavy green screen and CG effects, how did that challenge you as an actor, not having physical, you know, you're so used to working with people like Guillermo del Toro, where a lot of what is practical. It's all practical. It's all on screen, like physically there. What was the challenge with moving to almost all green screen production?
Well, now a lot of you saw a mix. Some of the interiors were built. You know, there would be two walls built, and then then a window that was open with green behind it, or a table and chairs with green behind it, or a door that opens with green behind it. So, and then the outdoor shots were nothing but a person with green screen all around them, and everything was filled in post-production digitally. That was a challenge, to try to imagine your surroundings. Well, David Lee Fisher, our director, had a full-size, humongous screen TV on set with us, so he could digitally show us, like, here's where you're going to be, and he could set up the shot, and again, kind of, preemptively show us what it was going to look like. So, oh, that's where I am. And so, very precise markings on the floor too, to match the set that you were going to be in from 1922. By the way, that was 4 years before this theater was built. Isn't that great? Yeah. What a great theater this is, and what a perfect place to show a vintage movie, right? I know, right? Gorgeous. So there was it was a lot of marks on the floor, and he had to rehearse the moves that would match the shot that was going to be laid in later, and so and that includes stairs and ramps, and one of my favorites was the two moments I wanted to make sure that we did not miss were the standing up out of the coffin in the bottom deck of the ship. I think it worked. It was haunting to watch. And that was on a board, and with some ropes and people going to get me up. But it matched and worked perfectly. Another one was, of course, the shadow going up the stairs. Yes. And I did that on a ramp. That's why it was so smooth. I wasn't going upstairs. It was on a ramp so they could show my shadow. And the other one, of course, was when the captain of the ship was looking up after he finds everybody dead, and he looks up and finds me in the lightning above. They had to shoot that I had to be up on a stand, and they were down there shooting up at me, and that classic lightning. I loved it. I love those moments so much. And another thing you might notice that was a little different than the first original movie was that Max Schreck had a much smoother face. It was more of him with like a bald cap and some weird ears and hair and some buck teeth. This was a full prosthetic makeup on me, designed and sculpted by Mike Elizalde, who owns the Spectral Motion shop in Los Angeles, which did my Abe Sapien makeup from the Hellboy movies and my Silver Surfer from the Fantastic Four sequel. And so he sculpted this on his own long before this movie was ever even thought of. He just wanted to do a Nosferatu sculpture, and he did it on my life cast. And then he showed it to me and said, "Do you like that?" I'm like, do I like it? All these people did not know this was my dream, So, yeah. So when David Lee Fisher called me and said, "Hey, do you want to do this movie?" I'm like, yes. And there's already a makeup designed. Yeah. So we got Mike Elizalde to actually run the foam pieces, and it was applied by Mo Meinhardt, Ben Plowman, and Erica Prius, and I owe them so much, because you would never recognize me if you didn't know that. I mean, I thought it was a complete restructure of my face, and those talon fingernails and there was an appliance in the back of my hand to make them more bony, more veiny. It was just a beautiful job, I thought.
That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask, because I'm looking at my wife here, and she's a huge fan, and she would be remiss if I didn't ask about the fingers, because she has a weird thing about fingers. How was that to make up applied? Yes. How was that applied? Was it just
those were
extensions?
Tough. No, they were big talon. They were light in weight, but they were glued onto my real. It was like getting Lee press-on nails, right? But they were like out to here, and so I mean everything all day you're going. So getting a snack was like, "Can you just feed me?" They're a booger to wear, but they looked really good, didn't they? Yeah.
So you also play the Count on What We Do in the Shadows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And obviously,
he's actually a baron. That's a bit.
The Baron. Yes. Apologies. So both of these characters, obviously, What We Do in the Shadows has more of a comedic bent. This is more
little.
Yeah. And this is more of an homage to Max Schreck and that German expressionist original movie. How did you approach playing these two similar but very different roles? Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Because Battle Nafinats from What We Do in the Shadows came along after this. Even though you've seen the Baron before this, because of that 9-year gap we've had, right? Nosferatu was actually was my introduction to vampires. Well, I did play a couple of ancients on The Strain, Guillermo del Toro's series, but those were thank you. Those were quiet, and it was a different kind of folklore. There were more stingers and viruses involved in that one, but. I did Nosferatu first, and so even like his voice, his accent, I wanted to make it more true, like Romanian, Transylvanian kind of a sound. Whereas the Baron, from What We Do in the Shadows, is a bit more cartoony, and he mispronounces everything on purpose, and I love it. Having done the serious part, then getting the show, getting to be a recurring guest on What We Do in the Shadows. By the way, the final season is coming. Yes, October's a big month because not only Nosferatu on October 18th, Apple TV, Amazon, Roku, eventually. Okay, but What We Do in the Shadows, their final season will premiere October 21st on FX channel and then Hulu the next day. And that'll be week by week, episode by episode. And they're doing 11 episodes this year instead of 10 to give you a finale. And so I'm very excited. October, and then also in October. Let's talk about October. My dear Hocus Pocus movie will be playing again on Freeform channel all month long, and as it always does. Yeah, but this year, for the first time ever, Hocus Pocus 2, which has been on Disney Plus exclusively, will now be on Freeform as a double feature all month long as well. So, yay! That's exciting about that. Yeah.
One thing I want to talk about in Nosferatu is the changes that were made to the story, to your character of Count Orlok. In this one, you kind of mentioned that, you couldn't play a sexy vampire. Oh, no. But there's definitely more sexual overtones in your version of Count Orlok. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I felt like especially in that final scene, he's very seductive in a very creepy way, not in a sexy Twilight type of vampire way, in a very, very creepy way.
Yes. I don't do the sexy, I do the creepy. Thank you. So it comes all too naturally. But I will say that, this is the thing. We were, again, scene by scene, the same exact movie as the original silent film, but you had the ability to do subtlety and to work those subtleties in. So even the discussion, when I'm talking with Thomas and he's at my house and I'm about to sign the paperwork and I say, do you have the time? And he shows me his watch, which I somehow knew that her picture would be in there. And then I see that, and then it's that anytime that Count Orlok talks about this gentleman's wife, it's like, oh, stop it. Yeah, I know. It's like, that's a man's wife you're talking about. That was subtlety that the silent film maybe couldn't give you. Whereas now we have sound, and we had the luxury of time. If I wanted to take a moment and a beat and let the eyes drift while thinking about this lovely woman off in the distance. And then, of course, the actual scene where I'm finally sinking my teeth into her, the ultimate goal. I mean, I've killed and sucked blood from a lot of people. She was the trophy, right? And he's finally there, and he's just like lavishing in this moment. So you notice my hands were just kind of subtly all over the place, as you would do. Hoity with me. but it felt very. I think it was the ultimate satisfaction for him, and even to the point where when the sun was coming in the window, and he's like, "Oh, I did it, didn't I?" Well, all right. Oops. It was almost like internally. And again, here's the issue you have. If you're going scene by scene with an original silent film, there was a lot of goofiness to those original silent movies. A couple of goofy. Let me start with this other goofy moment: carrying a casket around. Right. Okay. So watching the original silent film, Max Schreck was very animated when he was doing that, walking around with his legs going everywhere. So I wanted to give it that flavor, but also try to make it a tad more real if I could. I'm not sure if I pulled it off or not, but it was great fun. And that entire casket, I had just injured my right shoulder. I'd torn my rotator cuff doing a stunt on Star Trek Discovery. So I actually had a break from Star Trek Discovery quickly. I could come and film some reshoots, and that's when we did the casket scenes. Well, I'm like, oh, I can barely hold my arm up, let alone hold a cat. Well, how am I going to do that? They made it out of balsa wood. It was like an airplane. It was super easy. So our prop makers and set designers, we did such an amazing job with the pieces they did do. So walking around with that was actually quite easy. So that was some goofy from the original film that I wanted to. The other goofy was his death when he. Right, very melodramatic. And how do you try to bring some real to that moment, right? So what was going through my mind was, well, I've had the ultimate thing. I don't know where one goes from here. I'm trapped. The sun's there. You're right. So you can see this internal mind work going on. So when he steps in front of the sun, it's almost like a sacrificial. Been there, done that. It's time for me to go now. And so I struck the exact same pose Max Schreck did, and that was a moment I really wanted us to get. And I goofy, but I hope I made it a sliver of real in there, I hope.
So you've done Dr. Caligari with David Lee Fisher. You've now done Nosferatu with David Lee Fisher. Is there another classic German expressionist movie that you would like to tackle with him?
If they take 10 years each to do, I'm 64. That's what I'm saying. So we've talked. We have talked about it. I don't know. Would you all want to see?
Yes.
That's very sweet. I was thinking it'd be kind of fun to try to do the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. I don't know. I don't know if we can or not. We'll see. We'll see.
Obviously, you're known for playing such iconic characters, creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call them. What does that mean to you? Because I know Guillermo del Toro talks a lot about how much he loves monsters and how lovely they are to him. And what do monsters mean to you as someone who portrays them? What does that really mean to you?
Right. Well, like Guillermo del Toro, he and I share a love for monsters and that they can be the romantic lead. They don't just have to be the one who scares the romantic lead. And that we proved that with The Shape of Water, for instance. Well, thank you. And with 13 Oscar nominations and a Best Picture win, I think the audience bought that too. So thank heaven. I think there can be such beauty in what others find flaw. So myself personally, having grown up a very gawky kid with a long, skinny neck, hard to believe, I know, but. And being made fun of by other kids and the things that kids go through and the insecurities we carry into our adulthood with us, blah, blah, blah. Monsters, playing them is a way for me to say, well, okay, if we're going to be a monster, let's do it all the way. And let me be the good guy in this story, or let me finish out this notion of monster with a redemptive quality to it. And the Del Toro films really let me delve into that. He makes his monsters his heroes because he loves them so much. So when you've got a movie like the Hellboy franchise, where we freaks are the heroes of the movie, that's what it means to me. Is that there might be a monster. We've all felt like the monster in the room at some time or another. Like we're the oddball. We're the freak. We're the one with the impurities or insecurities or imperfections. And what monsters have taught me is that our imperfections might be where our beauty lies. Okay.
So I have one question that we leave every interview Q&A off with that we do all the time, and I'm very curious to hear this one. So if people are going to watch this again, because they're going to obviously watch this again in a couple weeks, which of your movies would you pair with it as a double feature?
Oh, well, the best would be The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, honestly. And if you haven't seen that yet, you can find it on YouTube for free in its entirety. The original silent film Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1919 is also on YouTube. Ours was made in 2005. So if you do Cabinet of Dr. Caligari 2005, it should come up right away. And it makes a good pairing, I think. Yeah.
Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you again.